Welcome to this episode of der KI Kompass, the podcast where we explore the transformative power of AI in business and beyond. Today, I'm thrilled to have Edmund White, Vice President for Business Development at AIBODY, with us. Edmund brings over 30 years of experience in healthcare technology and is now at the forefront of a groundbreaking innovation, digital human organisms. In this episode, we'll dive into how AIBODY is reshaping medical education and clinical training with advanced AI tools, the opportunities and risks of integrating AI in healthcare, and why balancing innovation with human oversight is more crucial than ever. Thank you for joining our podcast. Maybe let's start with introducing yourself, your role in your company, and also maybe the way you got to this role in your company.
I'm Edmund White. I worked around 30 years, mainly in the healthcare technology space. And today, I'm working for a company that's developed a digital human organism that's built from digital cells. So what that means is our team have built a cellular tissue organ level organism, which has over 132,000 parameters and acts like a digital organism. And we are using that tool to help train medical students at medical schools and educators to have a better understanding of physiology. Because in today's world, physiology is a very much top-down approach, not a bottom-up approach. And we're really showing how the physiology can link that to the clinical outcomes in patients in a simulated environment. And we use a natural language tool to enable, that's the AI piece, which talks to that human organism to help generate scenarios for students to have better outcomes and for educators to manage that education process more efficiently. And also, Anna, we have a second product in the clinical domain called NovaHeart. And this basically is a product that takes transthoracic echo and brings that into a three-dimensional world where we can map out the heart and the hemodynamics of that heart for young children, or like a digital twin. And it helps really for education and patient engagement for both the clinician and for the parents of the child. So that's what we're doing, or I'm doing with my team today.
So I just want to understand it correctly, because I tried to look at your website and I wasn't fully sure if I understood the product right. So are you providing a platform for medical students to be able to learn the physiology better? Or do you also provide something for hospitals where they can use your technology to better the human?
Yeah, so we also have, just to answer that, we have a hospital product, actually a clinical product called NovaHeart. And this is a platform basically that takes a 2D transthoracic echo and put it into a three-dimensional anatomical and hemodynamic model. And it's really targeted for cardiologists in the pediatric space, where they're looking to look at a model of an echo in a different three-dimensional way to help patient engagement and also to help them understand more about the anatomy of that young child in a different modality than what they normally do. So that's where we work there as well in that clinical space.
Very, very cool. Very interesting. So, I mean, you already mentioned you obviously the AI is in the name of the company. So I'm really excited to hear more about how you use AI within your company, your product, but also within your processes, because I think that's even more interesting. Maybe before we get really into the topics, I would love to start with a quick round of questions where you complete my sentences.
Yeah, sure. Go fire away.
All right. Success is defined for AIBODY.
Success for me, or for AIBODY, is actually really transforming the outcomes of our customers or our patients for better outcomes, and for education to bring those students and educators to a different level in the outcomes they're achieving in their environments today.
Mm-hmm. All right. The most important thing we can do for the future is?
Yeah, I think in the future, we can transform with AI disease prevention. So we can enable early intervention before those symptoms appear. And we can really look at creating what we call personalized medicine. This is where treatments are tailored to the individual profile. And this is really using the power of AI.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. All right, maybe let's get into more in-depth questions. What role does AI play in your organization? It's a very broad one. Can be also targeted, obviously, to your product, which I'm super interested in, but also in what processes you use AI.
Yeah, so when we talk about AI, our processes today are really about modeling the human physiology using mathematical models.
Mhm.
The AI piece really comes in where we can actually use a learning language model to create scenarios for, let's say, medical students and educators to work through a set of parameters or questions. And we can use a tool to help them, a learning language model tool to help them work through that process. So that's the piece where we're using the AI in that kind of framework context today.
Interesting. And also in your processes within your company, within AIBODY, do you use AI tools, for example, to optimize sales, to optimize operations? There are multiple ways to use that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like many organizations today, we're using generative AI. For example, we can use it to look into ways to look at the complexity of a market situation, and we can do scenario planning, role playing. We can do sophisticated prompt engineering, for example, to look at specific outcomes we want to get. We can also automate processes much better, so we can actually take time to do some of the manual tasks, automate them, so we can free up that time to give more value added tasks in our organization. So there, yeah, it's a couple of examples that we're using it today.
Very interesting. Do you have any specific tools that you can mention that you're using to do these automations or free up space for more important?
Yeah, I mean, typically there's a lot of tools out there today, generative AI tools. I mean, most people are familiar, obviously, with ChatGPT. Tools I think are quite useful are particularly now, tools like, for example, Perplexity AI has inbuilt learning language models. You can do fact checking and you can do a lot of different aspects within that. So that's a very useful tool just for general all-round purposes. Actually, my favorite tool is Anthropic Cloud. So it's a very high level, again, learning language model and can help really refine some, if you're using good prompt engineering there, you can get some good outcomes which can help do certain tasks in your organization. So well, some of the ones I play with, there's some other ones out there using, but there's some of the mainstream ones I'm using.
Thank you. So what use cases do you like try to, I mean, you already mentioned a couple. Do you have any specific examples of a situation or use case where AI really helped you cut down time or increase revenue within the company, or maybe also in your previous engagements? Doesn't just have to be about AIBODY.
Yeah, I think the most important thing when you're using these tools is really to, as I mentioned, have good prompt engineering, but also the material, the sources that you're using within these systems. There's a lot of issues today in generating false data or automated bots which are creating data which is actually not actually the real data. And I think important part of these systems is to be in control of the system and actually source the data that you're using and you want to work with and prompt and be in control of that situation. So so we have to be, I think, mindful of the way we're using this because, yeah, it's the quality of the data that's really important. And if we're not using it off a base quality, then our efforts are done in vain. So, so a lot of what I do today in terms of work I'm using these technologies is to really make sure that the source material, and that's why the fact checking is so important around what we're doing, what we're using there. And processes can help, yeah, for sure. If you're drafting SOPs and you're looking at some best practices, that's very helpful. We're looking at very complicated regulatory frameworks where you look at some of the nuances of your technology. You can explore that within some of these tools. But I think it takes, we shouldn't rely totally on it. It's a kind of partnership of 50, well, not 50-50, but we need to use our professional discernment around using this in the way which is best for everyone.
Do you think that this might be a reason why AI, like people are very skeptical of AI? Because I mean, fact checking in some levels is almost impossible. It's really difficult. Sometimes it's so thin, the line between this is true and this is false. Do you think this might be a reason why adoption has been a bit slower?
I don't necessarily think adoption's slower because of that. Everybody has everybody has different levels of adoption across individuals, across organizations, and I think it's just a matter of some people take it like a duck to water and will just adopt it and use it and embrace it. Others are a bit more reluctant, and I think it's just a matter that we're all different in the way we take to learning new technology, and some of this is quite disruptive, and people sometimes feel maybe a little bit fearful of what this can do. So I think it's more about that. It's about how we can adopt it ourselves in this process. Yeah.
Thank you. So obviously you're working in a more new company or a younger company. This is a very innovative product. And so I believe that adoption is probably very high of new technology just because it's in the inherent nature of your company. But I would be maybe a bit interested also in looking back in your previous experiences. Do you think that AI there will have an impact? Do you think that generally in health tech, med tech, AI will increase certain areas of business?
Yes, definitely. I mean, if we go back, if we go back to 2020, COVID was really a preset catalyst for us going more remote in the healthcare space, let's say. So there was an understanding that things needed to be more decentralized at that time. So I think retrospectively, we're already seeing a lot more of these tools, not AI tools specifically, but more telematic tools. And now if you're with the recent developments over the last few years in the AI technology space, we can overlap these tools with these AI tools. As we're going back to the questions about adopting the technology, it will have an impact. They're early adopters, they're followers, and so on, that kind of model of adoption technology. I think the biggest change actually to make this really happen is a behavioral change. And, we work with a lot of organizations to try and introduce our technologies. And one thing I often notice is in terms of the way teams are led today in a lot of institutes is in a very inclusive leadership style. So that's good and bad. So good that everybody has a stake and can say something, but it's bad in another way because sometimes no one steps up to really say, look, we got to make a decision. We got to take a calculated risk here. We got to see the benefit here. We got to go and just dive in and take that chance, opportunity or risk to do this. And the people we work with, the early adopters, the innovators, recognize immediately the impact this technology has. Yeah, as I said, it's as I was saying about leadership styles in a lot of large institutes today. And if you're an SME and you want to go in and you want to bring a very compelling technology proposition, it's often that this style is good because many people are included in the decision-making process, but at the end of the day, someone actually has to execute that decision and for that organization. And I think that's a little bit of a downside of inclusive leadership because people don't want to step up and take that risk, maybe on their own careers or whatever, to bring in something which could be very transformative and really good for everybody. So I think as I said, it's this behavior change to adopting here, and some calculated risks will help progress this further.
Is that something you're seeing with AIBODY, where obviously your clients are institutions and very big, very traditional companies? Is that something that you're seeing where there is certain early adopters buying into your technology because it's obviously an AI tool, and then some might be more hesitant, or is that something that's not really going on?
I think, yeah. So we're dealing with healthcare institutes, large hospitals, large medical schools. And these are big institutes, many departments, and many different stakeholders involved. So I think coming in, and as I said, the organizations which are innovative, they see the value of the technology. We see that working very well. I think it's as I said, it's a behavioral change here about making sure people in these institutes can take a calculated risk to execute on something which would be very transformative for everyone. And we're making fantastic progress there. But I think when I talk to people, colleagues, and across the network ecosystems, this is a constant thing for SMEs when you're working with large organizations. It's kind of like the David and Goliath situation, there. But yeah, the value proposition is very important, and I think when people buy into that value prop and see that, yeah, then things work, and then then you get others seeing things happening, and there's followers and so on. So the snowball effect starts moving then there. But it can be challenging for organizations who are trying to break into sort of large institutes. Yeah.
Mhm. Looking maybe back over the past 5 years, how has your company's or maybe also your attitude towards AI changed?
For sure, yeah. My attitude's definitely changed with AI. I see so much more in terms of what we can do from a productivity point of view. As I mentioned to you, a lot of the tasks that we can automate now with AI frees up to do the more value-added tasks. And I think particularly for SMEs where there's resource constraints and there's not the large number of resources that can do all the different tasks sometimes that this really will help, free up the resources to do the mission-driven activities that are really important. So I see that very important. But also, I see it also in terms of adding, as I mentioned earlier, if you start looking into smart prompt engineering and you're looking at outcomes you want to achieve, you can use these tools in a way which can really help, let's say, elevate the business to a different level because you're using the best of that technology with the experience of the person behind it. And that together is a very powerful combination. Which wasn't there 3 or 4 years ago. So it can only progress more and more as the different iterations of the software in this space accelerates. We're only going to see a lot more there opportunity. So there's a lot of quotes out there saying if you don't work with AI, you're falling behind. Or so it's definitely something you have to work with. Yeah, it's basically be embedded into everything that we do in the future. Sure.
What dangers maybe can you think of, or do you think there are dangers of this element? Because you're saying, obviously, I also agree with this. I think AI will be embedded in everything we touch. Do you see any danger in there? And if yes, what?
There is absolutely a danger there, Anna. So I think, look, potential to transform medicine in a nice space, what I've seen for patients, but there are really risks with AI systems. And the biggest risk I think keeps me up at night is thinking about if these AI systems are training themselves without proper safeguards in place, we're in dangerous territory. So I think it's really important, and it's great to see some of the measures being put out there to really make sure that these algorithms become more transparent and accountable and really match our human values through this learning process. So ethical guidelines, auditing, like sort of anything that can avoid biases or errors, and having that human oversight is going to be really important because otherwise we're going to get sort of consequences which we don't really want to intend to happen.
Mhm. You already mentioned a bit human oversight. I mean, I'm sure you've already also familiarized yourselves with the AI Act. If not, then we can skip this question. But the AI Act is basically saying that especially tools or AI tools in, for example, hospitals or very sensitive institutions need to have human oversight. How are you at the AIBODY looking at that? What is your thought process behind this?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing when you're developing medical products, look, the medical industry, device industry had to deal with the EU MDR a few years ago. That set the bar much higher, particularly for more invasive devices, what we call that class 3 in the industry. So these are, which are very, yeah, say invasive. And then if you add another layer of AI into that equation, yeah, safety becomes an issue, and you've got to really work. The EU AI Act came out earlier this year. It's launched now. You really got to work within those guidelines for making sure at the end of the day that the product or service that you're offering is safe for the patient in the end. There's a lot of debate about the regulations that are quite complicated and costly for SMEs to hit those thresholds to get there, and help the bigger companies have the resources to do that. So I think there should be measures in place within the European Union for companies, SMEs, for example, to support them in this process, to have an even matching with the large corporates who have those resources. So what's the word? The overall philosophy is very good, but it's got to be an even playing field for all players to make it fair.
Very, very interesting. Maybe if you can think of your ideal AI application, what would it look like and what impact would you want it to have?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. So I would be saying something that basically it's like we've seen more and more like agent technologies coming through now from OpenAI. So I think it's more about things which can automate our lives much better. Because you and me, we all want to apply our human creativity in our works and our lives. So all that drudgery, all that stuff, which is just, oh, I've got to do that. I just did my tax return last weekend and it took me a whole day to do it. If I can just have an agent just to run that all for me, I can then have a better quality. So something which can just do everything for you, like a PA, and you can just go and focus on the things which are most important in your life. To me, that's going to be great. So that would be my wish for the future.
That's very cool. Maybe one thing, if you want to go into this, but in our first episode, we actually talked about human creativity, and there was also a guest was saying, yeah, he feels like creativity might be taken away from humanity if AI automates a lot of tasks. I mean, obviously, there are tasks which involve no creativity. What is your stance on AI taking away a bit of this human creative aspect?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, that's what makes us human is that we have the capability to be creative. And now, if AI starts really going into that domain in a very strong way, what the question is, what role is there for us to be creative? It's an open question. I think what we may see in society, maybe in the next 10 years, if things progress as they do, we'll see a lot more kind of creative workshops or things going on, activities which really manifest the human creativity. And it will be sort of like this was created by a human and it will be valued and cherished more than an AI. There'll be watermarks saying this is AI. So I think we're going to go into a two-tier system in the future, but we should celebrate our humanness at some point, probably. So my gut feeling is going to go that way. I don't know, but who knows? Yeah.
Thank you. It's a very refreshing perspective. I really like it. Do you have anything you want to add or tell our audience at the end?
Yeah, I think just come the kind of final remark we just talked about. I think the human value is so important. Yeah, so we can never replace that element. I think whatever AI technologies we're going to be working in the future, the most important thing is actually to improve the relationships with each other as human beings. We can use AI, I think, really to augment that for the benefit of our humanity. So I don't think we should ever lose touch of the human side there. So to me, that's probably the most important thing I'd like to convey to your audience.
That's it for this episode of Der KI Kompass. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to join us again next week for another exciting conversation about AI. See you then.